Hey everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do a book review of Pyramids written by Terry Pratchett. This was first published in 1989. This is the 7th Discworld novel and the first Discworld novel to not be a part of a character subseries. So first of all I will describe what is the Discworld, and that is quite simply a large flat round disc. It fits in with the flat earth theory as such. But this large flat disc rests on the back of 4 very large elephants, which sounds even stranger when you add the fact that these 4 elephants stand on the back of a world turtle, which obviously swims through space just like it would swim through water. Sounds strange, but it works extremely well for the Discworld. Now, the setting of this book starts off in the city of Ankh-Morpork, which is essentially Terry Pratchett being very sarcastic about London, England, and all the little alleys and the way that London traditionally works. And it follows the character of Tepic. Now, Tepic at the start of the book is actually learning and training to be an assassin, because obviously if you are going to have assassination in the world, you may as well be organised assassination, same as thievery and every other profession. So there is an Assassin's Guild. He is trying to become an official member of that. Now, as this is the Assassin's Guild, there is a rather sort of life or death exam, quite simply, that you have to do on whether you actually will be an assassin or whether you'll be, well, not alive anymore, as you do. So, he starts off with, and the reader starts off with learning about the Assassin's Guild, which is a rare insight, and about Tepic as a person. He is open-minded but quite determined when he understands what needs to be done. He, at the start of the book, thinks that the main thing is to become an assassin and pass his exam and frankly not get killed, which is always quite important for everybody. Then, however, something a bit surprising happens. After he officially passes his exam, he has the rather sad and startling news that his father, back where he originally came from, died. So he has to then make his way back to essentially what is Terry Pratchett's sarcastic version of Egypt, which is called Jelly Baby. I mean, Terry Pratchett has to be sarcastic even about the name. And he has to go and see his father, who was obviously the pharaoh and therefore a god. This uses ancient Egyptian ideas, just twisted as always, and he has to see him obviously interred into a pyramid, hence the name of the book. But something a little bit different goes on, however, because he doesn't like the traditions and the way that Jelly Baby the Kingdom works. He's trying to change the system, but it's extremely hard, especially when, for instance, the High Priest, called Diaz, is very much a traditionalist. He has served several other pharaohs. He's very well preserved, and he likes things done in a certain way, and everybody kind of just goes along with him. I mean, he doesn't rule in any sense, but he certainly controls things and influences things, because everybody doesn't want to upset him. They want him to be behind the scenes, and this creates a number of problems when Tepic says, well, oh yes, to honour my father, I will create the largest pyramid ever made, which by itself is kind of dangerous. And this leads into a part of the book I'm not going to talk about because there's too many twists and turns and some interesting things I think are worth obviously experiencing for yourself. But suffice to say, it's very strange and surreal at times. The idea of what effect that building this pyramid might have and what might happen to the kingdom and its people is frankly brilliant, and it's just really fun, well paced, and frankly well thought out overall. Now, as far as the characters in the novel are concerned, they are all extremely well written, and all with their own sarcastic and interesting personalities. So Tepic is a young man. He is quite confident in who he is. However, because he's going back to his original place of birth, to Jelly Baby, he is no longer quite as sure of himself. The way that he was living in Ankh-Morpork was very different, because Ankh-Morpork is a modern liberal city. Jelly Baby really isn't. It holds with traditions and certain pomp and ceremony and such. And this doesn't work out too well for him, so he's trying to adjust his personality and his mindset from what it was, which was able to do pretty much anything he wants, to one that works within this system. He knows he's not going to be able to change it fully, but he wants to be able to at least influence it in a better direction. And there are several other major characters. The first of them is indeed his father, whom you get to know both before and after his death. Remember, this is about pyramids, mummies, don't forget, so his father definitely comes into play there. His father is an interesting character. He's got a certain personality that both contrasts and conflicts with his son, and indeed Diaz. Diaz is the other major character to my mind in this book, because he is his high priest. He's very much the traditional flame bearer for the novel. He wants things done in a certain way because they've always been done in that way, but other people don't. So he has personality issues with quite a few people, frankly. Nobody ever wants to cross him though, because he means well. He's just not doing it in a very nice manner, I suppose you could say. And frankly, he's a brilliant character. And there are others like Tepic, his friend Chida comes into play several times, and he is a very different personality as well. It contrasts and compares well with Tepic, and he's a fun character. There is his dad's former favourite handmaiden, and other characters that I'm not going to talk about too much, because I think it's fun to get to know. All I'm going to point out is Dill and Gurn. I'm not going to say who those two characters are, but Dill and Gurn are brilliant characters, and they are almost like a comedy double act in themselves, let's say. Now, as far as the setting goes, that is obviously Ankh-Morpork, which is London. This is London, England, with every sarcastic trope you can imagine, twisted not fully around but at a slight angle. You don't quite know what to expect, however, and you get to see a rare insight in Pyramids, because he is exploring the Assassin's Guild, which you know exists from previous books, but you've never really seen. And in this, you suddenly start seeing that the Assassin's Guild actually have a certain structure to them, a certain culture within the guild itself, and how it fits into the larger city. It doesn't go ultra in depth on this, although you do get glimpses of this in other books sometimes, but combined this with other books and the glimpses you get, it creates something that I think is really interesting and a different aspect of Ankh-Morpork. And the other setting, of course, is Jelly Baby, which is Pratchett's sarcastic version of Egypt. Again, it's Egypt, but every stereotype that you associate with Egypt in the real world, Pratchett has just twisted them slightly and exaggerated them and played on them to humorous effect, but also very clever effect. He never does quite what you expect him to, because he never just twists it around some strange angle. He'll twist it just slightly off kilter, and that works extremely well, and frankly it makes both the contrast, of course, between the Ankh-Morpork, which is a modern London, to this version of Egypt, which is an older Egypt, you know, this where the pharaohs rule. The contrast between these is brilliant and just really amusing to see. And now I'll get on to the ideas and theme. Now, one of these is, as I mentioned, the idea of tradition and pomp and ceremony, because this discusses something that I personally, as an English person, what with obviously the English monarchy and all the tradition of pomp and ceremony that goes on there, I think it's an interesting way of thinking, because Egypt, and or at least the Egypt in this novel, has its own traditions, characters don't like those editions, they think they should be different, and that directly makes me think on how there are many English editions in government and in higher places which I think personally shouldn't exist. They should just stop with tradition. I mean, I'm not a traditionalist for the record. To me, a tradition should be kept if it is useful and if it is still relevant. If it's not, cut it and be quite harsh with it, frankly. This is discussing and bringing to the fore that idea of whether you should keep traditions and how long you should keep them for, and so on. Another thing is, of course, power and control, because this is a kingdom ruled by the pharaohs. How do they rule? Is their rule fair and just, or is it just because they happen to be pharaohs they rule regardless of what anybody else thinks? It's an interesting thought. It's discussed this in other novels. This time, obviously, this is with a Egyptian slant to it, and it's one that I think is really well done overall. Another few things are the idea of succession, with reference to obviously ruling and so on. Of course, he, as the son of the previous pharaoh, he then becomes the pharaoh. Is that right? This is almost nepotism again, but obviously succession. But is just because you happen to be the related to somebody, should you then get the control from them, or should you merely have an interesting viewpoint and that's it? It brings it up in an interesting way. And the other point that I'm going to end on is the fact that this discusses, not heavily but a little bit, death culture. And obviously this is Egypt, so obviously the thought of burial, mummification and so on is really interesting. I'm not going to go into it because it might give away certain interesting and amusing moments, but it is a really well done and one that I really overall enjoyed. So overall, this is a really well written and thoughtfully written novel with massive amounts of Pratchett's signature humour. He never does exactly what you think he's going to do. He'll twist it at a slightly amusing angle, but not exactly where you think. So you're always left, hang on, where's he going to go with this? I love that aspect, and I think it's something that he does extremely well. The characters and the world both work together extremely well with the idea and the theme that he's trying to portray and discuss in large detail to create, frankly, what I think is a really fun Discord novel, and I really would recommend this Discord novel. And frankly, because as well, it's not part of a greater character series, this can actually be read almost totally independently. I mean, you could almost start the Discord with this one because it's not related to any other book directly. Yes, it's got vague little references, but not too much, so potentially you actually could. And with that said, that is it for my review of Pyramid by Terry Pratchett. So if you've read this or would like to, then please leave a comment and we can have a talk about it. I will be reviewing more Discord novels in the future, and the previous ones in the series you can access on my channel as well. All the social media links as well as the link to this book can be found in the description box below. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another day. Bye for now.